The stars looked different through the viewport of the USS Endeavour. Captain Jake Morrison had been staring at them for the past hour, still amazed that humans could now travel between them. Just 50 years ago, his grandfather had watched the moon landing on an old television. Now Jake was sitting in a chair 300 light-years from Earth, drinking coffee that tasted almost like the real thing. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings from the outer sensors," called out Lisa Grant from her position at the tactical station. Her fingers danced across the holographic controls as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. "There's something big out there." Jake set down his coffee cup and walked over to the main display screen. The bridge of the Endeavour was not very large, but it held everything they needed for their mission. Tony Rodriguez sat at the engineering station, his hands already moving to boost power to the sensors. Dr. Amy Watson looked up from her science station, her eyes bright with curiosity. "How big are we talking about?" Jake asked. "Really big," Lisa replied. "About 3 times the size of our ship. And it's not moving like any asteroid I've ever seen. This thing is definitely artificial." Jake felt his heart start to beat faster. In all the years humans had been exploring space, they had never found any sign of alien life. Scientists had argued for decades about whether humans were alone in the universe. It looked like they were about to get their answer. "Can you get it on the main screen?" he asked. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing. The alien ship was huge and dark, covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. It had long spikes coming out of it in all directions, making it look like some kind of metal sea creature. The design was clearly meant to look scary, and Jake had to admit it was working. "That's definitely not one of ours," Tony said, his voice quiet. "Should we try to contact them?" Amy asked. She was the ship's expert on alien life, even though she had never actually seen any before today. Jake thought about it for a moment. They had procedures for first contact with alien species, but those had been written by people who had never actually met any aliens. He decided to go with his gut feeling. "Lisa, open a channel on all frequencies. Let's see if they want to talk." The response came almost immediately. The main screen flickered and then showed the interior of the alien ship. The creature looking back at them was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and black, and it wore what looked like a military uniform covered in medals and decorations. "I am Admiral Crickstall of the Zephyrian Dominion," the alien said. Its voice was deep and harsh, translated by the ship's computer into English. "You have entered space claimed by our empire. You will surrender your vessel immediately, or we will destroy you and everyone on board." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all staring at the screen with expressions of shock and fear. This was humanity's first contact with an alien species, and it was not going well, the alien continued speaking. "Your primitive ship cannot hope to match the power of our weapons. We have conquered 47 star systems and destroyed countless civilizations. You have 30 seconds to surrender before we turn your ship into space dust." Jake felt something strange happening inside him. Maybe it was the stress of the situation, or maybe it was the alien's over-the-top way of speaking, but he felt a smile starting to form on his face. The alien sounded like a villain from one of those old movies his dad used to watch. "Did he just say he's conquered 47 star systems?" Jake asked quietly. "That's what it sounded like," Lisa replied. "And he's giving us 30 seconds, too." "Surrender or he'll turn us into space dust?" Jake continued. "Captain, this is serious," Amy whispered. This could be the end of human civilization. But Jake could not stop the smile from spreading across his face. There was something about the whole situation that struck him as completely ridiculous. Here was this alien, dressed up like a space emperor, making threats that sounded like they came from a bad science fiction movie. The creature was clearly trying very hard to be intimidating, but it was having the opposite effect on Jake. 20 seconds, the alien announced. "Prepare to die, primitive creatures." That was when Jake lost it. He started laughing, quietly at first, then louder and louder. The sound echoed around the bridge, and his crew turned to stare at him in shock. "Captain, are you okay?" Tony asked. Jake tried to stop laughing, but every time he looked at the alien on the screen, he started again. The creature looked so serious, so convinced of its own importance. It reminded Jake of his old high school principal, who used to make grand speeches about the importance of following rules while standing in front of posters of cartoon cats telling students to hang in there. "I'm sorry," Jake managed to say, between fits of laughter. "It's just ... Did you see how he said prepare to die, primitive creatures? Who actually says that?" Lisa started to smile despite herself. "He did sound pretty dramatic." "Dramatic?" Jake laughed harder. "He sounded like he was auditioning for a role in a space opera. All he needs is a cape and some dramatic music." Amy covered her mouth with her hand, but Jake could see that she was trying not to laugh too. Even Tony was grinning now. 10 seconds, the alien said, its voice getting angrier. "This is your final warning." Jake looked at his crew and saw that they were all fighting back laughter now. The whole situation was just too absurd. Here they were, humanity's first contact with an alien species, and the alien was acting like a cartoon villain. "You know what?" Jake said, still chuckling. "Let's see what happens." He turned to face the screen, where the alien was counting down the final seconds. Jake straightened his uniform and tried to look serious, but he could not keep the smile off his face. "Admiral Crickstall," he said formally. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel USS Endeavor. We appreciate your colorful introduction to galactic politics. However, we're going to have to decline your generous offer to surrender." The alien's eyes grew even larger. "You dare to mock the power of the Zephyrian Dominion?" "Mock?" Jake asked, his grin getting wider. "Oh no, Admiral. We're not mocking you. We're just having a hard time taking you seriously." Behind him, he heard Lisa snort with laughter. Amy was biting her lip so hard she was probably drawing blood. Tony was shaking his head and grinning. The alien on the screen looked completely confused. "This is not how primitive species are supposed to react to our ultimatums." "Sorry to disappoint you," Jake said, "but we humans have a tendency to laugh at things that are supposed to scare us. It's kind of our thing." The alien stared at them for a long moment, clearly not knowing what to do. Finally, it spoke again, but its voice was uncertain now instead of threatening. This is not normal. You should be begging for mercy. You should be offering us your resources and your submission. You should not be laughing." "Maybe that's the problem," Jake said, still smiling. "Maybe you've been dealing with the wrong kind of species. We humans don't scare easily, Admiral. We've been dealing with things that want to kill us since we first crawled out of the oceans." The alien's image flickered and then disappeared. A moment later, the huge ship began to move away from them, apparently deciding that humans were too strange to deal with right now. Jake turned to his crew, who were all staring at him with mixtures of admiration and concern. "Well," he said, "that was interesting. I guess we just laughed our way through humanity's first contact with aliens." "Do you think they'll be back?" Amy asked. Jake shrugged. "Probably, but next time, maybe they'll try a different approach. I have a feeling that threats and intimidation don't work very well on our species." He was right about that. But none of them realized just how much trouble their laughter was about to cause. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council had been called within hours of Admiral Crickstall's strange report. Ambassador Velneth of the Crystalline Collective stood at the center of the Great Hall, her translucent body shimmering with nervous energy. Around her, representatives from dozens of species sat in their designated areas, all talking at once about the disturbing news. "Order! Order!" Velneth called out, her voice creating musical tones that the translation devices turned into words. "We must discuss this matter calmly and rationally." The hall slowly grew quiet. General Thakvar of the Chitinous Republic clicked his mandibles together impatiently. His beetle-like appearance made him look fierce, but those who knew him understood that he was actually quite thoughtful when it came to military matters. "Tell us again what happened," he said to Admiral Crickstall, who stood in the center of the hall looking embarrassed and confused. Crickstall cleared his throat. "As I reported, we encountered a small vessel from a previously unknown species. They call themselves humans. When I delivered the standard ultimatum for surrender, they laughed at me. A murmur ran through the assembled representatives. Many species had been conquered by the Zephyrian dominion over the years, and none had ever responded to their threats with laughter. They laughed? Asked Dr. Zaramin, the Federation's chief expert on alien psychology. Her species, the empaths, could sense emotions from great distances, but she had never heard of anything like this. Not just the captain, Krickstall continued. The entire crew. They acted as if our threat was some kind of joke. The captain even said they had trouble taking us seriously. Senator Koilix of the Peaceful Traders shook his head. This makes no sense. When faced with overwhelming force, all intelligent species either surrender or attempt to negotiate. Laughter is not a rational response. Unless, said General Thokvar slowly, they know something we do not. The hall fell silent. This was the thought that had been worrying everyone since the report came in. What kind of species would laugh at a threat from one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces? We need more information, Velnef decided. Dr. Zaramin, I want you to lead a team to study everything we can learn about these humans. General Thokvar, prepare a threat assessment. We need to understand what we're dealing with. 3 days later, Dr. Zaramin stood before the council again, but this time her expression was one of deep concern. Behind her, a large screen showed images and data that her team had collected from human transmissions. Fellow representatives, she began, what we have discovered about this species is deeply troubling. The humans appear to be a race of apex predators whose entire civilization is built around conflict and violence. She activated the display, showing scenes from human movies and television shows. They create entertainment that glorifies warfare and destruction. Look at this. The screen showed explosions, battles, and heroes laughing as they fought overwhelming odds. They have something they call action movies where individuals fight armies and win. They watch these for fun. They also have comedy shows where they joke about the end of their world. The screen showed clips of comedians making jokes about nuclear war and asteroid impacts. Senator Koilix looked pale. They find the destruction of their own planet amusing? That's not the worst part, Dr. Zaramin continued. We have discovered that they have been in a constant state of warfare for their entire recorded history. They have fought each other with weapons that can destroy entire cities. They have developed biological weapons that could kill millions, and they treat all of this as normal. The screen showed images of human weapons throughout history, from simple clubs to nuclear missiles. They have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. They actually believe that the best way to avoid conflict is to become better at fighting. General Thokvar leaned forward. What about their technology? How advanced are they? This is where it gets truly frightening, Doctor. Zaramin replied. They have only recently developed faster-than-light travel, but their weapons technology is surprisingly advanced. They power their ships with controlled nuclear fusion, the same process that powers stars. They have created artificial intelligence that can think faster than any organic mind. And they have something called the Internet, where they share information instantly across their entire planet. More importantly, she continued, they have created detailed plans for fighting every possible enemy. We found documents where they discuss strategies for fighting everything from their own kind to invaders from other planets. They call these contingency plans, and they seem to have them for every possible threat. The council members looked at each other nervously. A species that planned for every possible war was either very wise or very dangerous. There's something else, Dr. Zaramin said. We intercepted communications between their military leaders. They discussed something called mutually assured destruction, as if it were a normal part of their defense strategy. They are willing to destroy their own planet rather than surrender to an enemy. Senator Koilix stood up, his voice shaking. Are you saying they would commit planetary suicide rather than submit to conquest? That appears to be their preferred strategy, yes, Doctor. Zaramin confirmed. They have weapons pointed at their own world, ready to use them if they are invaded. They call it scorched earth tactics. General Thakvar was quiet for a long moment. A species that would rather die than surrender. A species that finds warfare entertaining. A species that has planned for every possible conflict. He looked around the hall. Fellow representatives, I believe we may have encountered the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But they only have one ship, pointed out Ambassador Velneth. How dangerous can they be? That's what worries me most, General Thakvar replied. They sent a single ship to explore unknown space. Either they are incredibly foolish or they are so confident in their abilities that they believe one ship is enough. Dr. Zaramin nodded. There's evidence to support the second theory. In their entertainment, human heroes regularly face impossible odds and win through superior tactics and determination. They seem to believe that being outnumbered is not necessarily a disadvantage. And they laughed, Senator Quolix added quietly. When faced with a threat that would terrify any rational species, they laughed. What kind of beings find mortal danger amusing? The kind that have faced mortal danger so many times that it no longer scares them, General Thakvar said grimly. The kind that have survived by becoming the most dangerous thing in their environment. Ambassador Velneth called for order as the hall erupted in nervous conversation. We need to make a decision. What do we do about the humans? Dr. Zaramin consulted her notes. Based on our analysis, I recommend that we classify them as a Category 12 existential threat. This species appears to be capable of destroying civilizations, and their behavior suggests they might actually enjoy doing so. But they haven't actually attacked anyone? Senator Quolix pointed out. Yet, General Thakvar said. They haven't attacked anyone yet. But everything we've learned about them suggests that it's only a matter of time. They are a species of warriors who have spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. Now they have the technology to spread across the galaxy. The vote was unanimous. The humans were classified as a Category 12 existential threat, the highest level of danger in the Federation's system. General Thakvar was authorized to assemble a containment fleet with orders to prevent the humans from leaving their home system as the council session ended. Ambassador Velneth remained behind with Dr. Zaramin and General Thakvar. Do you really think they're as dangerous as we're making them out to be? She asked. Dr. Zaramin looked at the data on her screen one more time. Ambassador, we have discovered a species that treats warfare as entertainment, plans for every possible conflict, and responds to threats with laughter. Whether they are actually dangerous or not, they are certainly unpredictable. And in my experience, unpredictable species are always the most dangerous ones, General Thakvar nodded. I agree, we cannot take any chances. The containment fleet will be ready within the week. None of them realized that their analysis was completely wrong. The humans were not a species of galaxy-conquering warriors. They were simply a species that had learned to laugh at their problems because it was the only way to stay sane in a universe that seemed determined to kill them. But misunderstandings have a way of growing larger, and the Federation's fear of humanity was about to create the very conflict they were trying to prevent. 2 weeks after the Federation Council meeting, the largest military fleet in galactic history gathered at the edge of human space. Admiral Quindor of the Ethereal Hegemony stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the 300 warships under his command. Each vessel carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon, and together they represented the combined military might of dozens of civilizations. Are the humans responding to our presence? He asked his communications officer. Yes, Admiral. They have sent a small task force to meet us, 5 ships total. Admiral Quindor felt a chill run through his ethereal form. 5 ships against 300. Either the humans were completely insane, or they possessed weapons so powerful that they believed 5 ships were enough to destroy his entire fleet. What types of ships? He asked. Unknown design, Admiral. They appear to be similar to the exploration vessel we encountered before, but slightly larger. Our sensors indicate they are armed, but we cannot determine the nature of their weapons. This worried Admiral Quindor even more. If his advanced sensors could not identify human weapons, those Weapons must be based on technology far beyond anything the Federation had ever seen. "Sir," called out his tactical officer, "the humans are requesting a meeting. They want to discuss terms." Admiral Quindor considered this. Standard procedure would be to refuse any meeting until after the humans surrendered, but these were not standard circumstances. If the humans really were as dangerous as the Federation believed, it might be wise to hear what they had to say. "Very well. Tell them we will meet on the neutral station at coordinates 4472238891. I will bring a full diplomatic team." 3 hours later, Admiral Quindor materialized on the neutral station along with representatives from 5 different Federation species. They had come prepared for negotiations with a civilization of galaxy-threatening warriors. What they found instead was Commodore Jake Morrison and 4 other humans, all wearing clean uniforms and friendly smiles. "Admiral Quindor, I presume," Jake said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "I'm Commodore Jake Morrison, and these are my officers. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." The Admiral stared at the extended hand, unsure what to do with it. The humans looked so normal, so peaceful. Where were the weapons? Where were the signs of the terrible power that had the entire Federation terrified? "You may call me Admiral," Quindor said carefully. "I have been sent by the Galactic Federation to discuss your species' expansion into civilized space." "Our expansion?" Jake asked, looking puzzled. "Admiral, we've got exactly 6 ships out here." "I wouldn't really call that an expansion." Lieutenant Colonel Ben Hayes, who stood beside Jake, snorted with laughter. "6 ships, and they send 300 to stop us. Are we dealing with galactic hall monitors here?" The Federation representatives exchanged nervous glances. Even when surrounded by overwhelming force, the humans showed no fear. Commander Kelly Brooks, a woman with short brown hair and bright eyes, was actually smiling at them. "I'm sorry," she said, "but this whole situation is just so ridiculous. You bring enough firepower to destroy a solar system, and we show up with what's basically a handful of exploration ships? It's like bringing a bazooka to a pillow fight." Admiral Quindor did not understand the reference, but he could hear the amusement in her voice. These humans were mocking his fleet, just as they had mocked Admiral Crickstall. "Commodore Morrison," he said formally, "the Federation has classified your species as a Category 12 existential threat. We cannot allow you to expand beyond your home system." The humans looked at each other and burst into laughter. Jake actually had to wipe tears from his eyes. "Category 12 existential threat?" he repeated. "Us?" "Admiral, I think there's been some kind of mistake. We're just explorers." "We're not threatening anybody?" "We have studied your species extensively," Admiral Quindor replied. "We know about your history of warfare, your weapons of mass destruction, your plans for fighting every possible enemy. We know that you find violence entertaining and that you would rather destroy your own world than surrender to an enemy." The humans stopped laughing and looked at each other with confused expressions. "Wait," said Commander Brooks. "You've been studying our movies and TV shows, haven't you?" "Among other things, yes," the Admiral confirmed. "And you think those are real?" asked Lieutenant Colonel Hayes. "Are they not documentation of your species' capabilities?" Admiral Quindor asked. This sent the humans into another fit of laughter. Jake had to sit down on one of the station's chairs to catch his breath. "Admiral," he said finally, "those are stories, fiction, entertainment. We make them up for fun." "But we observed your actual history," protested Dr. Zexnall, the Federation's xenobiologist. "Your species has been at war for thousands of years. You have weapons that can destroy cities. You have plans for fighting alien invaders." "Well, yes," Jake admitted, "but that doesn't make us galactic conquerors. Humans fight because we're not very good at getting along with each other, not because we want to take over the universe." Engineer Pete Sullivan, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Besides, our weapons aren't that impressive. Sure, we've got nuclear bombs and stuff, but they're really just controlled fusion reactions. It's not like we can crack planets like eggs or anything." The Federation representatives went very still. Dr. Zexnel made a choking sound. Did you just say you have mastered controlled fusion? Admiral Quindor asked quietly. Well, yeah, Pete replied. That's how our ships work. We use small fusion reactors to power them. It's pretty basic technology, really. Basic technology? Dr. Zexnel whispered. You consider stellar fusion to be basic technology? Stellar fusion? Pete looked confused. No, we're not fusing stars. We're just fusing hydrogen atoms. You know, like what happens inside stars, but on a much smaller scale. The aliens looked even more terrified. To them, any species that could control the forces that powered stars was incredibly advanced and dangerous. And the planet cracking? Asked Admiral Quindor. That was a joke, Pete said. I mean, I guess if you set off enough fusion bombs, you could probably crack a planet, but why would anyone want to do that? We like planets. We need them to live on. Commander Brooks shook her head. I think I see what happened here. You guys looked at our entertainment and our history and assumed we were some kind of warrior race, right? The evidence seemed clear, Admiral Quindor replied. But you didn't consider that maybe we make war movies because we're trying to understand violence. Not because we enjoy it, Jake said. And yes, we have contingency plans for alien invasion, but that's because we're paranoid, not because we're conquerors. Your species responds to mortal threats with laughter, Dr. Zexnel pointed out. This is not normal behavior. It's not? Ben Hayes asked. What do you guys do when you're scared? We try to eliminate the threat or escape from it. The doctor replied, Well, we do that too, Jake said. But we also laugh about it. It helps us stay calm and think clearly. Panic gets people killed. So you laugh at danger to maintain psychological stability? Admiral Quindor asked. Exactly, Jake replied. It's a survival mechanism. If you can laugh at your problems, they don't seem as scary. The Federation representatives were quiet for a long moment. Finally, Admiral Quindor spoke. Commodore Morrison, I must ask you directly, does your species have any intention of conquering other worlds or threatening the peace of the galaxy? Jake looked at his officers, who all shook their heads. Admiral, we just want to explore, learn new things, and maybe make some friends along the way. We're not interested in conquering anybody. We've got enough problems back home without looking for more. Then why, Admiral Quindor asked, do you show no fear when facing a fleet that could destroy your entire civilization? Jake thought about this for a moment, because fear wouldn't help us right now. Either you're going to attack us or you're not. If you attack us, being scared won't save us. If you don't attack us, then there's nothing to be scared of. So we might as well try to find a solution that works for everyone. And if we cannot find such a solution? The Admiral asked. Jake shrugged. Then I guess we'll have to figure something else out. Humans are pretty good at improvising when things go wrong. Admiral Quindor realized that everything the Federation thought they knew about humans might be completely wrong. These were not galaxy-conquering warriors. They were simply a species that had learned to face their problems with humor and determination, but convincing the rest of the Federation would not be easy. 300 warships were waiting for his decision, and the fate of both species might depend on what happened next. The meeting had ended with no agreement. Admiral Quindor returned to his flagship more confused than ever, while Commodore Jake Morrison and his officers went back to their small task force. Both sides prepared for what seemed like an inevitable conflict, but neither truly understood what the other was thinking. On the human ships, the mood was surprisingly relaxed. Jake sat in his ready room with his senior officers, discussing their situation over coffee and sandwiches. So let me get this straight, said Commander Kelly Brooks, taking a bite of her ham sandwich. The entire galactic community thinks we're some kind of super advanced warrior race because we make action movies and have nuclear weapons? That's about the size of it, Jake replied. They saw our entertainment and our history and jumped to all the wrong conclusions. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Hayes shook his head. These aliens really need to learn the difference between fiction and reality. I mean, do they think we actually have superheroes flying around in metal suits? Apparently they think we have weapons. That can crack planets, added engineer Pete Sullivan. All because I made a joke about fusion bombs. To be fair, said communications officer Ryan Carter, fusion bombs probably do sound pretty scary if you've never seen them before. Jake looked out the viewport at the massive alien fleet in the distance. 300 ships, all pointed at the small human task force. It should have been terrifying, but somehow it just struck him as absurd. You know what really gets me? He said, they brought enough firepower to destroy a solar system to deal with 6 exploration ships. It's like using a nuclear submarine to catch goldfish. The others laughed, which was exactly the kind of response that had started this whole mess in the first place. Meanwhile, on the Federation flagship, Admiral Quindor was meeting with his senior staff. The atmosphere in their conference room was much more tense than on the human ships. I don't understand them at all, the Admiral admitted. They claim to be peaceful explorers, but they show no fear even when facing overwhelming odds. Either they are lying about their intentions, or they have some terrible secret weapon that makes our fleet irrelevant. What about their casual mention of controlled fusion? Asked Captain Yixtal of the science vessel. No species in the Federation has mastered that technology. And they spoke of it as if it were nothing special, added Commander Zekrin. What kind of civilization considers stellar manipulation to be basic technology? Admiral Quindor stood up and walked to the viewport, looking at the human ships. They were so small compared to his massive fleet, yet their crews acted as if they had nothing to worry about. There's something else that troubles me, he said. We intercepted some of their communications during the meeting. They were discussing what they called backup plans and worst-case scenarios. Even now, they're preparing for every possible outcome. Back on the human ships, the crews were indeed making preparations, but not the kind the aliens imagined. Security Chief Linda Martinez was reviewing emergency evacuation procedures while Medical Officer Dr. Susan Lee was preparing the sick bay for possible casualties. These were standard precautions that any responsible crew would take when facing a potentially hostile force, but the aliens interpreted these activities very differently. When they detected the humans running system diagnostics and checking their equipment, they assumed the humans were preparing some kind of superweapon. When they saw the humans practicing evacuation drills, they thought it was training for abandoning ship after launching a devastating attack. The misunderstandings grew. Worse when the Federation intercepted a casual conversation between 2 human engineers. Hey, Mike, said one engineer to another. Did you finish those modifications to the reactor? Yeah, we're running at 110% efficiency now, Mike replied. If we need to run silent, we can cut power to everything except life support and weapons. Good, and the hull reinforcements? All done. We can take a lot more punishment now before anything critical gets damaged. To the aliens listening in, this sounded like the humans were preparing their ships for a major battle. They didn't realize that these were just routine maintenance, tasks and safety improvements. The situation got even worse when the Federation picked up a transmission from Earth. The human government had been informed about the alien fleet, and politicians were doing what politicians always do, making speeches. If these aliens think they can intimidate humanity, declared Senator Robert Thompson in a broadcast, they have seriously underestimated us. We have faced ice ages, asteroid impacts, world wars, and pandemics. We've survived everything the universe has thrown at us, and we'll survive this too. Our brave men and women in space represent the best of human courage and ingenuity, added President Maria Garcia. They will not back down from this challenge, just as we have never backed down from any challenge in our history. The aliens heard these speeches and became even more convinced that humans were a warrior race. They didn't understand that this was just human nature, the same stubborn refusal to give up that had helped the species survive everything from saber-toothed tigers to nuclear weapons. The final straw came when the Federation intercepted a conversation between Jake and his crew about their tactical options. Okay, people, Jake said during a strategy meeting. If shooting starts, what are our options? We could try the crazy even, suggested Ben Hayes. Hit them hard and fast, then scatter in different directions. Or we could go with Plan B, added Kelly Brooks. target their command ship, and hope the rest of them lose coordination. What about the nuclear option? Asked Pete Sullivan. Only as a last resort, Jake replied. We don't want to escalate things unless we have no choice. The aliens listening to this conversation were horrified. The humans were calmly discussing battle tactics against a fleet 300 times their size. They talked about attacking the command ship using nuclear weapons, and something called a crazy even that sounded absolutely terrifying. What the aliens didn't realize was that these were just standard military contingency plans. Every ship in space had similar discussions about what to do if attacked. The crazy even was just a term for evasive maneuvers, named after an old submarine tactic. The nuclear option was simply their fusion-powered engines at maximum output, which could be used to escape quickly if necessary. Admiral Quindor called another emergency meeting with his senior staff. The situation is worse than we thought, he announced. The humans are definitely preparing for battle. They've modified their ships, practiced their tactics, and they're discussing the use of nuclear weapons. Against our entire fleet? Asked Captain Yixtal. Are they insane? No, the Admiral replied grimly. They're confident. A species doesn't discuss attacking a superior force unless they believe they can win. But how? Commander Zekrin asked. Even with their advanced technology, they're still outnumbered 60-1. That's what terrifies me, Admiral Quindor said. They must have weapons we can't even imagine. Or they have allies we don't know about. Or both. The truth was much simpler. The humans were just doing what humans always did when faced with a problem. They made plans, they prepared for the worst, and they kept their sense of humor about the whole thing. They weren't confident because they had secret weapons. They were confident because they had learned over thousands of years of surviving disasters. That panicking never helped anyone, but the Federation couldn't see this. All they saw was a small group of beings who showed no fear, made casual references to weapons of mass destruction, and seemed to treat the entire situation as some kind of game. The misunderstanding was complete. The Federation believed they were facing a species of galactic conquerors who were preparing to demonstrate their terrible power. The humans believed they were dealing with a group of paranoid aliens who had gotten the wrong idea about humanity. Neither side realized that they were about to stumble into a conflict that could have been easily avoided if they had just taken the time to really understand each other. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen when two completely different ways of thinking about the universe finally collided. The standoff had lasted 3 days when everything changed. Admiral Quindor was preparing to deliver an ultimatum to the human fleet when his communications officer received an unexpected message. Admiral, the officer called out, the humans are requesting another meeting. They say they have something important to show us. Admiral Quindor hesitated. Every military instinct told him this was a trap. The humans had been preparing for battle, making modifications to their ships and discussing nuclear weapons. This meeting was probably a way to get Federation representatives close enough to demonstrate some terrible new weapon, but his curiosity won out over his caution. Very well. Tell them I will meet with them on the neutral station again. But this time, I want a full security detail. 2 hours later, Admiral Quindor materialized on the station with 6 armed guards and 3 scientific observers. He expected to find the humans waiting with some kind of doomsday device or a demonstration of their planet-cracking technology. Instead, he found Commodore Jake Morrison sitting at a table with a pot of coffee and a plate of cookies. Admiral, thank you for coming, Jake said, standing up and offering his hand again. Please sit down, we need to talk. Admiral Quindor remained standing, his guards ready for action. What do you want to show us, Commodore? Jake smiled and gestured to a large screen that had been set up in the meeting room. We want to show you who we really are. I think there's been a massive misunderstanding here, and it's time we cleared it up. He pressed a button, and the screen came to life. But instead of showing weapons or military demonstrations, it showed scenes from human daily life. Children playing in parks, families having dinner together, people walking their dogs. Students attending classes. This is Earth, Jake said simply. This is what a normal day looks like for most humans. The Federation representatives watched in confusion as the images continued. They saw humans helping each other during natural disasters, scientists working together to cure diseases, artists creating beautiful music and paintings. We're not warriors, Admiral, Jake continued. We're just people trying to live our lives and take care of our families. But your history, protested Dr. Zexnall. Your wars, your weapons. Yes, we've had wars, Jake admitted. But we've also spent thousands of years trying to stop having them. Every war we've fought has taught us that peace is better than conflict. The screen showed images of human peace treaties, international cooperation, and humanitarian efforts. Admiral Quindor watched as humans from different nations worked together to feed the hungry, heal the sick, and explore space. What about your entertainment? Asked Captain Yixtal. Your movies glorify violence and destruction. Commander Kelly Brooks laughed. Those are just stories, Captain. We make up scary situations so we can practice being brave. It's like mental exercise. We imagine fighting monsters so we'll be ready if we ever meet real ones. But you have weapons that can destroy cities, Dr. Zexnall insisted. Yes, Jake said sadly. And that's exactly why we don't want to use them. We built those weapons during our most destructive war, and when we saw what they could do, most of us decided we never wanted to see anything like that again. The screen showed images of nuclear test sites, but also peace protests, disarmament, treaties, and scientists working to find peaceful uses for nuclear technology. We keep those weapons around because we're afraid of each other, Jake explained. But every year we try to reduce their numbers. Most humans hope that someday we won't need them at all. Engineer Pete Sullivan spoke up. And about that fusion technology, Admiral, it's really not as scary as you think. Here, let me show you. He pulled out a small device that looked like a child's toy. This is a model of our fusion reactor. It's actually pretty simple. You take hydrogen atoms and push them together really hard until they stick. When they stick, they release energy. We use that energy to power our ships. He demonstrated with the model, showing how the process worked. The Federation scientists watched in amazement as Pete explained the basic principles in terms that even a child could understand. It's not about controlling stars, Pete said. It's just about copying what stars do, but on a much smaller scale, like making a campfire instead of setting a forest on fire. Admiral Quindor was beginning to understand, but he still had questions. Then why do you show no fear when facing our fleet? Why do you laugh at threats that would terrify any rational species? Jake thought about this for a moment. Admiral, can I ask you something? What do your people do when they're really scared? We try to eliminate the threat or escape from it, the Admiral replied. Right, that's logical. But humans learned something a long time ago. Sometimes you can't eliminate the threat and you can't escape from it. Sometimes you just have to face it and hope for the best. Jake stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the massive Federation fleet. We've faced ice ages that lasted thousands of years. We've survived asteroid impacts that blocked out the sun. We've lived through plagues that killed half our population. We've even survived wars where we almost destroyed ourselves. He turned back to face the Admiral. We learned that when you're facing something that might kill you, panic doesn't help. Fear doesn't help. The only thing that helps is to stay calm, think clearly, and keep trying to find a solution. And the laughter? Dr. Zexnall asked. Laughter keeps us sane, Jake replied. When everything looks hopeless, when the odds are impossible, when the whole universe seems to be against you, sometimes the only thing you can do is laugh. It reminds us that we're still alive, we're still thinking, and we're not giving up. Commander Brooks nodded. My grandmother used to say that humans don't laugh because we're not afraid. We laugh because we are afraid, and laughter is how we fight back against the fear. The Federation representatives were quiet for a long time. Finally, Admiral Quindor spoke. So when you laughed at Admiral Krickstall's threat, you weren't mocking him, you were dealing with your own fear? Exactly, Jake said. And when we made jokes about your fleet, we weren't being disrespectful. We were just trying to stay calm in a really scary situation. And your battle preparations? Asked Captain Yickstall, standard procedure. Then Hayes replied, when you might have to fight, you prepare to fight. But that doesn't mean you want to fight. It just means you're not going to give up if someone attacks you. Dr. Zexnall looked at her scanner readings. Commodore, my instruments indicate that you're telling the truth. Your emotional responses are consistent with peaceful intentions. Admiral Quindor felt a great weight lifting from his shoulders. So you really are just explorers? That's all we've ever been, Jake confirmed. We came out here to see what was beyond our home system, to learn new things and maybe make some friends. We never wanted to threaten anyone. Then I believe, said Admiral Quindor slowly, that we owe your species an apology. The Federation has greatly misunderstood your intentions. Jake grinned. No harm done, Admiral. Though I have to say, this has been the most interesting first contact in human history. We'll probably be making movies about it for years. The Admiral actually smiled at that. Perhaps this time we will understand that they are just stories. Over the next few hours, the two sides worked out the details of a formal peace agreement. The Federation would withdraw its fleet and welcome humanity as a new member species. The humans would share their fusion technology and help other species develop the psychological resilience that had made humanity so adaptable 6 months later. Jake Morrison sat in his new office on the Federation capital world, serving as Earth's first galactic ambassador. His job was to help other species understand human nature and to prevent future misunderstandings. He had just finished explaining to a group of young alien cadets why humans found dangerous situations. Amusing when his assistant informed him that a new crisis had developed. A species called the Vorthan Empire was threatening to invade Federation space, and their demands were being delivered in the most pompous, over-the-top manner imaginable. Jake listened to the recording of the Vorthan ultimatum and started to laugh. The cadets looked at him in confusion until he explained that he wasn't laughing at the threat itself, but at how seriously the Vorthans were taking themselves. You see, he told the cadets, the secret to dealing with bullies is to remember that they're usually more scared than you are. They make big speeches and terrible threats because they want you to be afraid of them. But once you realize that it's all just an act, it becomes a lot less scary and a lot more funny. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the best response to a crisis wasn't fear or anger, but a good laugh and the determination to keep going no matter what the universe threw at you. And thanks to humanity's example, more and more species were discovering that laughter really was the best medicine for fear. The universe was still a dangerous place, full of conflicts and challenges. But now it was also a place where different species could work together, learn from each other, and maybe even share a laugh or two along the way.